This game is everything you could ever dream of if you are a college football fan. You have the defending national champions taking on the preseason AP poll and coaches poll #1 team, and it's at the national champions' home. For everybody new around here, my name is Colin Bashnigel, your host here at Bash's College Football Show, and you can find me over here on TikTok if you just look up Bash's CFB Show. Make sure you keep in mind to comment down below what you think is going to happen in this game, but enough talking. We're going to get into this preview right now, and right before I do, just like the video, if you like the video, we have Ohio State hosting Texas. When I made this graphic, it was 1.5. I've seen it fluctuate between 1.5 and 2.5. Ohio State, a very, very small favorite. Julian Sayin versus Arch Manning. Let's start right there. That is huge. This matchup at the quarterback position is huge. I'm going to make the argument that Julian Sayin has far more to work with, though. When I look at Ohio State, I know they have the best wide receiver in the country, maybe even the best tight end in the country. I know he's got a better O-line in front of him as well. More on that here in a little bit. And I really think that the receiver depth is going to be incredible. I think Ryan Day is going to have a good game plan for this defense to have Brian Hart line up in the box, basically knowing what to do with the input that Ryan Day is going to have during the game. I really don't think that coordinator change is going to be a disaster for Ohio State. But on the other side of things, even though Arch Manning does not have the same weapons that Julian Sayin has, he still has really good weapons on the outside. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore. These guys are really, really good players for Texas. And he's also got a really good proven backfield. Trey Wisner is a really good running back. CJ Baxter, you forget how good he was as a true freshman because he missed all of last year, but he is that good. How can that Texas O-line hold up? But the other thing about it is, too, Arch Manning has experience that Julian Sayin does not. Whichever way you want to draw it, you could talk about, well, that was against garbage competition. I don't care. Julian Sayin has not played a lot of football, and Arch Manning has still played a couple of games. That does matter. It makes, in that year also under his belt extra in Texas's program, that's going to matter. So you can be a lot more comfortable with Arch Manning than you are Julian Sayin, but I'm going to tell you this, sitting back here, I think both quarterbacks are great. I really do. You could try to nitpick between the two. You could try to say that Arch Manning's better while Julian Sayin has more weapons and Julian Sayin's accurate, whatever. All right? I think it's relative a wash. We don't firmly know that. That's not something that we have a lot of data behind. We don't have much with Arch Manning, and we have nothing with Julian Sayin. So, I'm going to say this. If one thing is going to help Arch Manning, it is that experience that he gained throughout last season. Texas O-line is going to be a big concern, though. How will this O-line work out against this Ohio State defensive line? The Ohio State defensive line has drawn up a little bit of criticism as far as depth and convincing how good these guys are, but trust me when I say this. The talented young guys that Ohio State has, the transfer portal adds in Bo Atkinson and Logan George that Ohio State went and got, really pushed something from Caden Curry and made him elevate from everything I've heard. And everything I've heard too, Kenyatta Jackson, who has been a really good player, waiting his turn, chomping at the bit, has really taken that opportunity. You see one of them on both sides of the ball. Kenyatta Jackson chomping at the bit, waiting his opportunity in the offseason, having a huge offseason in development. You had the same thing on the offensive side of the ball with Brandon Ennis, chomping at the bit, waiting his turn. When his turn is right there, he goes and has a huge offseason. I think that will be critical for Ohio State, that Kenyatta Jackson and these edge rushers, Bo Atkinson and Caden Curry, come in and they show that they're dogs. But one thing I am convinced about, I have seen a good amount of snaps from the sophomores, Caden McDonald, Edric Houston, and I've heard great things about Jason Moore. Depth is going to be a concern throughout the season. I can tell you those starting defensive tackles are as good as any D tackles across the country for Ohio State. So this brand new O-line will have their hands full. And not to mention, too, you have CJ Hicks, who transitioned over to edge, more athletic than most edges you would go up against. That's going to be Brandon Baker's first assignment on that offensive line. And then you have to deal with the possibility of simulated creative pressures from that second level with athletic freaks at linebacker in Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. This Ohio State front seven, in particular the front four, was something that I was concerned about early in the camp series and all of that stuff. And now I'm pretty confident that they're going to be really good, and that is going to be a strength for Ohio State in this game. But this defense, man, for Texas, they are very interesting to me. Very interesting. I am not super convinced they're dominant in the middle. Now, I really like Alex January, the guy in the middle, as a sophomore, having a step up in a big year, finally getting exposed to playing time. I also really like their edges. I think you would be dumb not to see these guys, and Trey Moore, and you also have Colin Simmons. Obviously, you can't forget to mention him. And then Anthony Hill at the linebacker position is also a really good player. This front seven for Texas is going to be really good, but will they be able to dominate and take over the game? Well, I am convinced that Ohio State's O-line really took off. So the offseason of development that Austin Sareveld has had, kicking over to left tackle, that was not the plan. They brought in Ethan Onianwa, who you could watch film of. He played against this Texas team a couple years ago, and he looked pretty solid. He had some bad moments, but it was his first year starting. He looked pretty solid, and he developed throughout his time at Rice, and he was looking like an NFL potential prospect over there. And yet they're kicking him over to right tackle, having him compete with the cousin of Paris Johnson Jr., Philip Daniels, on that right tackle spot because of the development that both Austin Sareveld has had and Philip Daniels has had. I think these tackles are probably in a better position than the college football playoff game last year, in which Colin Simmons tore Josh Fryer apart. Well, I can promise you, whether it's Philip Daniels, Ethan Onianwa, Austin Sareveld, they're not Josh Fryer. They're not as weak as much. I love Josh Fryer, great leader. They're not as weak on the tackle as they were with that weak point. Not to mention they had a guard playing tackle in the playoff. And by the way, if you want to talk about the interior, that entire interior that started all 4 games in the playoff, they're back. They're back. Austin Saraveld's kicking the tackle, and also when you saw a bunch of mix around in the offensive line, guess who was next up? Luke Montgomery. Guess who impressed? Luke Montgomery. Guess who came in for Tegra Shabola, who is the biggest question mark in his development on the Ohio State offensive line? Luke Montgomery. Ultimately, Ohio State's defense, I think, is going to have their hands full with this run game. They got to be ready to be disciplined on to be able to defend that, and a little bit of play action pass and creativity with how they use the running backs out of the backfield in the throw game. I think that the biggest thing that everybody's talking about that might hold a little bit of water, staff continuity. Texas has it. Ohio State doesn't. You bring in Matt Patricia. You bring in or promote from within Brian Hartline, which failed a couple of years ago. Texas still has that continuity. And they have Pete Kwiatkowski calling the plays on that defense. Which is why, fellas, we got to go. I'm getting that out of here. You kidding me, man? I'm putting this on. All right? This Buckeye team is not losing this game. I firmly believe that. Jeremiah Smith, they're going to have a plan to get him involved. I firmly believe that. Not to mention, if they have the same game plan to try to take away Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate ate in the playoff game. All right, Brandon Innes over the middle is going to be a menace. And also, that Texas team, they did lose 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line. They did lose their 2 best players in the secondary. That secondary over there is not all it's cracked up to be. All these talking points come from whether it's Michigan fans just trying to hope secretly, oh, I want Ohio State to beat Texas. No, you don't. Stop it, because you're trying to find poke every hole in Ohio State when Ohio State does the number 1 blue chip ratio in all of America. You want to poke holes in what they have. You want to try to say that Matt Patricia is not going to work out, at least early. Please, give me a break. All of the position coaches come back on the defensive side of the ball. Everything I've heard, the Iron Buckeye, the captain and stuff, Austin Saraveld hype, you will find out very quickly that hype on the O-line is there. Because the only real staff change that was there, other than Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly, Justin Fry ended up leaving. And they might have got just as good, if not better, of a coach in Tyler Bowen. This Ohio State team is just like Georgia from 2022. And I believe we're going to see an Ohio statement on Saturday. The Buckeyes are going to win in the shoe, 27-17. It'll be final, and it'll be an amazing day, and it'll make Paul Feinbaum go crazy. But listen, what's the point of even watching this game? All right, it's clearly going to be a Texas blowout. You shouldn't even turn it on. Turn on Tennessee. Highlight film against Syracuse. That's what Paul Feinbaum would tell you. Well, I tell you different. Ohio State's going to beat this Texas team that has so many more holes than what people want to admit. And Ohio State is indeed, for my liking, the most complete roster. And the only question is, will Julian Sayin be good enough to win it? If you disagree with me, this is a little bit of a fan take ending to this, but if you disagree with me, make sure you comment down below and certainly like the video. I'll see you guys next time.